Welcome in to News and Views with Tom Lamprecht. The stories you've heard and the ones you need to hear.
3, 2, 1. And liftoff.
Endeavour launches once again.
This summit, the world came together
to confront this crisis.
Climate crisis.
Reducing officer-involved shootings in this country
allows police officers some level of immunity from doing a dangerous job.
The single-dose Johnson & Johnson COVID vaccine put a safety warning.
Your life, your values, your voice. This is News and Views with Tom Lamprecht on Talk 96.3 and 103.7.
All right, welcome in. It is News and Views for a Friday. Lots to talk about. Getting ready for the weekend. Earlier this week, the North Carolina House has approved a measure that could pave the way for ending the state's twice-a-year ritual, setting clocks forward and back, spring forward, fall back. It finally get some bipartisan stuff going on. The House members voted 99-16 to approve House Bill 307, which would basically mean we'd be on daylight savings time every day of the year. I like it. I guess the only negative would be, will the kids be going to school in the dark? And that could maybe be a little dicey, but the idea of having longer periods of sunlight after you get home from work or not having to go home in the dark, I sort of like. I would selfishly say, okay, that's a good bill, and we'll see if it passes the Senate. We mentioned earlier in the week, Roy Cooper is leading a nationwide effort along with Gretchen Whitmer from Michigan. By the way, did you hear Whitmer has been caught in a lie? This is sort of a sidebar as I go into the story. But Whitmer, who is all about the lockdown and don't leave the state and don't travel, apparently she was down in Florida having a big time. And she went on a podcast, I guess it was late last week or early this week, and out lied. Oh, I was here the whole time. Anyway, so lying Whitmer and Emperor Roy are leading a nationwide effort to encourage business leaders to publicly oppose states to pass election reform laws. As I mentioned to Keith Kidwell yesterday, I'd really like to know who paid for the governor to do this and whose time is he doing this on? As he sends letters out to businesses, is it on his stationery? Is it on his personal stationery? Is it on state stationery? Just wondering. We are asking business leaders in our states and throughout the country to add their voices to the growing chorus of corporations standing on the right side of history, the letter states, when the foundation of our democracy, the freedoms of citizens in our states to cast their ballots, is under attack. It's a powerful and important when Americans speak up, especially those in leadership positions. How about speaking up against H.R. 1, Govs? It's... It has nothing to do with actual election suppression. The actual election suppression would come with H.R. 1. These state bills are all about election integrity, which takes me to my next story. Lieutenant Governor, maybe he'll be governor one day. We hope so. Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson was up in Washington, D.C. yesterday. And he really stole the show. Interestingly, 2 North Carolinians were there speaking to Congress on H.R. 1. One of the voices was none other than Willie Barber. And Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson was also up there. And it was rather interesting. I really think he's making national news. Last night and today, he's all over national news for what he said. He went up there, testified at a hearing in the House of Representatives titled Oversight of the Voting Rights Act, the Evolving Landscape of Voter Discrimination. In his opening remarks, he said it was insane and insulting for anyone to compare voter ID laws passed in Georgia and other states to Jim Crow laws that were used to tyrannize black Americans and keep them from voting. Quote, my people were put in the bellies of ships, bound by chains and endured the Middle Passage. My people were whipped, beaten, and sold as property. In Reconstruction and throughout Jim Crow, black people were intimidated, harassed, and even killed to keep them from having a voice in government. Symbols like chains, nooses, and burnt crosses are not just symbols of death, they are symbols of forced, coerced silence. The sacrifices of our ancestors so I could have the opportunity to become the first black lieutenant governor of my state, to see a black man sit in the White House, and for millions of us to be leaders in business, athletics, and culture is incredible, he continued. Turning to the Georgia law, which the Democrats have accused of implementing Jim Crow in 2021 by suppressing minority votes, Robinson demanded to know how black voices were being silenced or kept out of the political process. How? By fear of a noose or chains, to be fired from work, to be ostracized in their communities? No. Because of a free ID to vote. Let me say that again, a free ID to vote. How absolutely preposterous. Am I to believe that black Americans who have overcome the atrocities of slavery, who were victorious in the civil rights movement, who now sit in the highest levels of government, cannot figure out how to get a free ID to vote? That we need to be coddled by politicians because they don't think we can figure out how to make our voices heard? Are you kidding me? The notions that black people must be protected from a free ID to vote is not just insane, it's insulting. Later in the hearing, when they got to the Q&A, Dan Bishop, congressman from North Carolina, and Lieutenant Governor Robinson had some interesting give and take, cut one Clark, which no doubt irritated Democrats as it shot down their narrative.
Democrats have characterized state laws adopting photo ID like Georgia, which really liberalized just about everything about its voting system except to require consistent use of voter ID recently. And Democrats have characterized that as Jim Crow 2.0. And you just heard the chairman a moment ago attempt to draw an equivalence between the old beans in a jar, guess how many there are, as a means of depriving blacks of the right to vote in Jim Crow, as the same thing as voter ID. Right. What do you make of that?
Again, I don't understand the logic. And you know, a lot of folks are saying that this is not just about voter ID. Let's go ahead and cut down the brass tacks. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's about voter ID because we understand that voter ID is that first line of defense in maintaining election integrity. It's the same way if someone came in here and said, hey, let's get rid of ID requirement to buy firearms. Boy, this place would go crazy because we know that'd be ridiculous. So it's about that. It's about the voter ID laws. But that notion that this is somehow Jim Crow, I think some folks need a history lesson about what happened during Jim Crow. During Jim Crow, it wasn't just a poll tax. It wasn't just a jar of beans. Guess how many jars of beans in it? If you stepped outside the line during Jim Crow, you'd find yourself swinging from a tree, or buried somewhere behind somebody's barn, or all cut up, or burned out of your house. Requiring an ID to vote is just simple American responsibility. In our state, I call it common sense legislation for the common good. Keeps us all honest. And to say that somehow poor people, black people, can't be involved in that responsibility, again, is insulting. It's insulting. And so I completely agree with you that it's not the same thing. Not even close. Not even on the same scale. It's not even in the same arena.
Lieutenant Governor Robinson, in North Carolina in 2018, the voters of North Carolina amended our state constitution by a fairly overwhelming vote to require photo ID. And since that time, an enabling law passed by the General Assembly, which goes well beyond, sir, what you said you would consider to be valid ID, It includes student IDs.
Absolutely.
It even has been amended to include the ID if someone holds that they receive public assistance.
Greenville
All
Toyota has a
allowed.
big deal
But
for
a
you.
judge-
Get up to
but judges
125% of
have
what your trade is
delayed
worth.
the effectiveness of that law on the grounds that it is racist. What do you say to that, sir?
I'd say that it's a perfect example of what's going on here today. We have a few elitists who believe that they know better than the people of the state of North Carolina. A few people, 2 or 3 judges that said, I know that 55, 60% of the people of North Carolina said they want voter ID, but I don't think so, and I'm a king, and I know better than you, so I'm going to strike that law down. That's the same thing we see going on in this chamber right now. That's the same thing we see with H.R. 1. Folks who sit high, look low, say, I know better than you. I know your state better than you. I know your people better than you. I'm going to make the decisions for you. Again, not going to happen. Not going to happen. That old saying, not going to happen, Captain, it's alive and well in North Carolina. It's not going to happen.
Lieutenant Governor Robinson, Reverend Barber says in North Carolina has been a continuous since 2010. The worst voter suppression campaign laws have been passed and implemented. Sir, how did you become the first black lieutenant governor elected in this past election if the people of North Carolina, through their elected representatives, are working to suppress voters of African American?
It's not about voter suppression. I'm going to tell you what my campaign was about. My campaign was about suppressing the lies from the left. That's what it was about. And when I told the people of North Carolina the truth, they heard it and they came running and they pushed my name. And not just white people, but all people that believe in our message. And again, I'm going to reiterate this statement one more time. What is going on in this room right now is all about this right here and the power grab that it ensues.
Wow. He set the Democrats' hair on fire. Elitist. It's the truth. They're elitist and they are race baiters, and they are using black Americans as their pawns for their power grabs. And you do. He's absolutely right. Here in the state of North Carolina, where we have voter ID, we have it in our Constitution now. And yet we've got a couple of judges that said, nope, we know better. And we have elitists in Washington, D.C. that said, no, we know better. For a black man like Mark Robinson to get up and say, enough is enough, to say the emperor has no clothes when it comes to your H.R. 1 and your rhetoric about how this is Jim Crow and discrimination. He's setting the Democrats' hair on fire. And as an example, this is when it really gets interesting. Congressman Chip Roy from Texas, conservative from Texas, he had an opportunity to question Mark Robinson concerning the same subject. And Mark sharply put the Democrats in their place on playing the race card again. And he comes out and says, enough is enough, and I'm tired of you using me. But what I want you to listen for, Steve Cohen is a liberal from the state of Tennessee. He's over in, represents the Memphis area of Tennessee. At the end of this, he literally goes nuts. You'll hear Chip Roy from Texas wants to include some documents in the record. And this guy, Steve Cohen, if you saw a picture of him, you know exactly who I'm talking about. He is a liberal nut. He goes nuts. And the reason why he's going nuts is because Mark Robinson did such a brilliant job of knocking the feet out from underneath them when it comes to their liberal narrative of this is racist.
They didn't, and the power right here, all about this right now. It's all in this room. Right, it's going on. What? One more time. Right, this.
All right, Clark, I'll let you fix that. In the meantime, while you're fixing that audio, I'm going to come back to it. Got a little audio issue. Clark will get it fixed. The News and Observer also reported that Wee Willie Barber was up there testifying. I mean, this would be. I would have paid money to be in that room to watch those two. It would really be fun to watch them go at it because Wee Willie Barber doesn't hold a candle to the insight and the rhetoric and the winsomeness of the lieutenant governor. But Wee Willie Barber was up there as well. He spoke, of course, in favor of H.R. 1. The New York Times reported that H.R. 1 would be the most significant enhancement of the federal voting protection since 1960s. Barber, of course, is pastor, quote, pastor of a church down in Goldsboro. Unlike Robinson, Barber chastised North Carolina lawmakers for what he said was the suppression of minority votes through gerrymandering, trying to establish same-day registration and pre-registration of 16 and 17-year-olds and demanding residents to show ID. Now, first of all, how is not being in favor of pre-registering 16 and 17-year-olds, how is that suppressing minority voters? And you want to talk about gerrymandering? The Dems did it for decades, or should I say centuries. The Republicans finally get in control after the North Carolinian voters woke up and realized the Democrats are taking us down the road to you-know-where and put Republicans in charge. And suddenly Republicans had the opportunity to place the districts where they wanted them. They learned from the Democrats, and suddenly the courts get involved, and guys like Wee Willie Barber are screaming how terrible this is. Barber repeatedly told the committee that a court in North Carolina lawmakers gerrymandered the state with intentional and surgical racism. It wasn't racism. They gerrymandered it just like you did so that they would have a political advantage. But you don't know how to do anything other than play the race card, so you do it again. Calling for Congress to pass the bill, Barber said that talking about H.R. 1, said that in the wake of the attack on the Capitol on January 6, Americans are calling us to fight for the soul of our democracy and enact full protections of our sacred right to vote. Isn't it interesting that Barber would use the phrase calling for us to fight for the soul of our democracy? Donald Trump, I don't know that he used the word fight, what Willie Barber said, I'm not knocking Willie Barber for this, but Donald Trump was crucified for saying the same kind of rhetoric for his people. And he was attacked that that kind of rhetoric is what caused the surge at the Capitol. While testifying, Robinson also took a shot at Vice President Kamala Harris, who visited Greensboro on Monday and sat at the Woolworth lunch counter that was the site of the sit-in by black students in the 1960s. He complained that Harris didn't invite one of the students. Why? Because one of the students is Clarence Henderson, who is now a conservative Republican. Anyway, let's go back to this audio. This is the audio again. Clark Willis, our producer, has fixed it for us. This is the audio of Congressman Chip Roy from Texas talking to Mark Robinson, and again, the liberal Congressman Steve Cohen is the chair. At the end of this, he goes nuts.
What we want is integrity. We don't want power. We want integrity. We want the right thing to be done. We want to encourage citizens to be responsible. We want to have the best election system in the world. Third world countries, places like India where the poverty rate is staggering, they have to show that finger when they go vote. It's time that we modernize our election system in this country and stop playing all these silly games based on race. And please, stop using me as a black man as your pawn. And yes, I said it, to push your agenda. I'm sick of it. It happened a long time ago in this country, and I'm tired.
Chairman, I would ask that the witness answer the question. His time has expired.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I just have a unanimous consent request to insert something.
Unanimous consent to insert something in the record.
Consent request.
5 minutes, Mr. Johnson.
You've already said that we could enter that in the record. You said it in your opening, Mr. Chairman. What changed?
Mr. Johnson, can you hear me? No, you'll be over my mouth.
So we're not going to insert something in the record?
So Republicans can't add anything in the record? I'm just
So the chairman doesn't want us to be able to insert stuff in the record?
Maybe in a few minutes, but not right now.
Oh, because when I had my time closing, I didn't want to insert it at the time inserted when I spoke?
Mr. Johnson, we're going to go in proper order. You're recognized for 5 minutes.
Well, this is a great way to run a hearing. Impressive.
What's wrong?
You think Steve Cohen was a little pissed? Why is he upset? He is upset because Mark Robinson pulled the curtain out and showed everybody what was behind the curtain. He spoke the truth. He spoke it clear. And how they are so upset. Why? Because Mark Robinson, a black conservative, dared to get off the liberal plantation. It's that simple. It is that simple. Don't you know, Mark Robinson, you're a black man and you're supposed to kowtow to anything liberals tell you. We got to take a time out. Stay with us. Much more to come. Friday's edition of News and Views. I'll be right back.
Shotgun with your 5 o'clock drive.
Well, the drive home should be a delight.
This is Tom Lamprecht with more news and views on Talk 96.3 and 103.7.
All right, happy Friday, 29 minutes past the top of the hour. Taking a look at your weekend weather forecast. Tonight, mostly clear around 46 for the low. Showers tomorrow after 2 o'clock, a high near 66. Chance of precip tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night, 80%. Then on Sunday morning, a chance of showers early in the morning. Otherwise, sunshine with a high near 73. So all in all, not too bad of a weekend. Weather brought to you by our friends at University PC Care. They have been Eastern North Carolina's go-to IT experts for quite a while now. Unfortunately, most organizations simply react to IT issues after the damage is done. This is known as the break-fix cycle in the tech service industries. Here is a quick example of what I'm talking about. You show up to work, you find your computer down, you submit a repair ticket, a text shows up, or a remote's in your computer trying to fix it. All the while you're down, perhaps losing files and losing productivity. University PC Care's Business Services Division has a much better way. A proactive solution called BizCare. BizCare tech support and cybersecurity plans are always on duty, staying ahead of potential problems, keeping you up and running with less downtime and much safer from threats like ransomware. Want to know more? Call William at 394-8572. You can schedule a free BizCare consultation or go to University PC Care to learn more. The News and Observer reported earlier today that North Carolina and Wake County Democrats rebuked one of their own executive committee members this week after he accused a U.S. Senate candidate of exaggerating the number of black people killed in American history. Former State Senator Erica Smith, she is a Democrat who is running for the U.S. Senate seat. She's already announced that she's going to be running for Richard Burr's seat. She sent an email to supporters Tuesday, playing the race card once again, a good old race baiter, after the conviction of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin in the death of George Floyd, a black man. She said in this email, I'm thinking about the literal millions of black men and women who have been murdered, who were lynched and slaughtered with disregard and never had their day in court, let alone just a just ruling, she wrote. Michael Shaw, a longtime member of the North Carolina Democratic Party State Executive Committee representing Wake County, sent Smith's campaign an email critiquing her response and questioning her math. Quote, exaggeration doesn't help. Gross exaggeration is worse. It makes you look bad, he said. Since the first African was brought to what is now the United States, if there had been 1 million murdered, that would have been 6 to 7 a day, every day for 400 years, he wrote. Millions? How many? 3 million? That's 20 a day. Were there that many at the height of slavery? When murdering a slave was, in effect, destroying valuable property in the absence of serious data? I don't believe it. 20 or even 6 a day now, or in my lifetime. Unlikely. So as terrible as things have been over those 400 years, let's not make it seem so much worse. It doesn't help anything, much less your cause. Shaw, who's white, later sent an email to others saying, in part, once again, I'm finding myself having to write to Erica's campaign telling them how bad their emails are. Now, what's interesting about this is this individual, Shaw, ended up getting totally shot down by everybody in the Democratic Party. What he said was true. And we don't know that he had any nefarious reasons for writing this. What he said publicly was, your campaign doesn't need to have these gross exaggerations, which is exactly what this is. I mean, if she was right and all these people were killed, then would we have any black Americans here today? So he points it out. Michael Shaw points it out. And he gets shot down. Just like Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson is getting shot down by all the liberals. They don't care what truth is. They just care about banging the drum, about playing the race card. And as we have said so often, as Benny said earlier this week, that's because that's all they have. If they can't play the race card, they cannot debate the issues. They've got to scream and holler and lie about the race situation. Is the race situation perfect? No. Is there still prejudice? Yes. On both sides of the black and white issue? Yes. It's a whole lot better than it was, and we're going in the right direction. As Mark Robinson so clearly stated in his testimony yesterday before Congress. But that's not good enough for the Democrats. They want to paint as bleak a picture as they possibly can. By the way, there is interesting new information out today concerning that shooting in Columbus, Ohio, Ma'Khia Bryant. And it's very, very sad. The death of the 16-year-old, the whole argument when police had to be called in to stop a knifing, a stabbing, which probably would have taken the life of one 20-year-old Black American woman, it was over a clean house. The other women that were there, that the 16-year-old Bryant was attempting to harm with the knife, they were there to celebrate the foster mother's birthday. This is sad. While the older two girls were there, they confronted Bryant over the fact that the house was a filthy mess. The older one told them to clean up the house because Mom doesn't like a dirty house. That's how it all started. And the police showed up, and you know the rest of the story. So this 16-year-old goes after a 22-year-old woman and a 20-year-old woman because they wanted Bryant, who was a foster child living in the house, to please clean up your mess. For that, she pulls out a knife and goes after the two. The telephone call, the 911 call, has now been released. What's going on, the dispatcher asked. Come up here, the woman shouts. We got grown girls over here trying to fight us, trying to stab us, trying to put her hands on our grandma. Get here now. Do you see any weapons? We need a police officer here now, the woman said before hanging up. Over a messy house. Something is seriously wrong. And as I said earlier this week, the thing that we really need to address in this country is not gun control, not police brutality. We need to address the family, because the family has lost its way.
Police later identified Ma'Khia Bryant. She appears to be the one shoving down the other woman. We are going to. This is the body camera video released
a broken
from
clock is right twice a day, and CNN sometimes gets it right. I just told you about Erica Smith and this Michael Shaw, who's getting all kinds of negative feedback because he spoke the truth about Erica Smith's exaggeration on millions of Black Americans being killed. Town Hall has got a story concerning CNN, Don Lemon, and Chris Cuomo. They actually got it right when it came to this Columbus police shooting. And they basically have said what we've said on this program, is that this police officer, Officer Nicholas Reardon, got it right. When he arrived on the scene, he absolutely could not have shot the person in the leg. And I think it was Don Lemon came out and said, you know what, you can shoot him in the leg, but the arm and the hand still had the knife in it. And she was getting ready to plunge the knife into this woman. Literally, if the officer had not responded when he did, that knife would have been in this woman. But what's interesting about this, so Cuomo and Don Lemon, surprisingly, got it right. But what's interesting is the negative feedback that they are getting from liberals. They don't want the truth. I mean, this is the people that are going around when it comes to COVID and wearing masks. All they say is follow the data, follow the science. You mean truth? And when it comes to video evidence, that's quite clear. No, they don't want the truth. The race baiters are not backing down either. A Rutgers University associate professor of gender and African studies yesterday said that Ma'Khia Bryant is being adultified, there's a new word for you, because she was a big girl. I mean, I said this the first day this story broke. When the police officer arrived, there's no way he would have guessed her age correctly. Okay, she might have been 16 years old, which is a young adult, but she was a large girl, a large young lady. Responding to Joy Reid of MSNBC, who suggested that people believe 16-year-old Ma'Khia Bryant deserved to die, nobody thinks that. Nobody wishes she was dead. No, it was the way they framed this. Oh, we wanted her to die. No, we wanted to preserve the life of the other girls that have their life threatened. Brittany Cooper, the associate professor from Rutgers, said, look, the arguments for our movement have never been that black people have to be perfect in order for them to deserve dignity, for us to have good policing, for us to be viewed with humanity, for cops to take a breath before they literally get out of the car, guns blazing. The race baiters are alive and well. I'm not even going to give this story any more credibility or airtime, but to say again that liberals, progressives, have a certain narrative, and they are going to continue to push that narrative. They go crazy if somebody speaks the truth that their narrative might be wrong, that there haven't been millions of African Americans that have lost their lives, that have been murdered, and they're going to go crazy, as Steve Cohen did when Mark Robinson spoke the truth that these election bills that states are passing are for election integrity, and they're not stopping anybody from voting. And no, they're not Jim Crow. We got to take another time out. Stay with us. I'll be back with more news and views right after this.
Break the chain. Eat local. Tiebreakers.
Hey, this is Hank Hinton back here at Full Service Flooring in Winterville. I'm here today with Corey Little, who's the operations manager here at Full Service Flooring. Corey's been here 6 months, but you've been in construction a long time. Tell us about what you do here at Full Service Flooring.
Yeah, I got over here about 6 months ago. I've been in construction for, like I said, a little over 20 years, and I've known Tim for a long time now, and he's brought me over here to see what new kind of things I can bring to the store and to our customers. And I'm in charge of scheduling, and I don't know what else. I'm in charge of everything. It seems like we work together as a team and try to pull it all together. I might do a measure one day and do a commercial floor the next day, but we just kind of all work together and pull it all together at one time.
So what's new in flooring? What is the hot new thing?
The hot new thing is LVP or LVT, depending on what you're looking for, which look you're looking for. It's a waterproof product. It's absolutely fantastic. You can't really beat it.
A lot cheaper than hardwoods?
It is definitely a cost-effective alternative to hardwoods, yes, sir.
So, Corey, how is business right now?
And business is good. Despite the pandemic, we're still seeing a lot of new customers in the store, and we get an opportunity to introduce our products in a lot of different situations right now.
Corey, you've got a lot of experience in the construction industry. How is that helping you here with people, helping people with flooring here at Full Service Flooring?
Sure. I try to take the experiences that I've gained over my time in construction to help apply that to the flooring, whether it be with what the structure is made out of, the subfloor that we're going over top of, or maybe even just how it coordinates with your kitchen cabinets in construction or in your bathroom, and how the tub and everything all ties together.
And a customer can just come here and see you anytime?
Absolutely. We're here 6 days a week, and we just love to see a new customer in here anytime. They can always call us and schedule something with us so we can make sure we have our time allotted for them.
Corey, thank you so much. That's Corey Little here at Full Service Flooring. Come see these guys. They're on Tilco Drive in Winterville, 756-9308 and FullServiceFlooring.com.
In North Carolina, we get up before the sun rises and stay up into the wee hours of the night. We believe in working hard and playing harder. Behind every meal, there's a farmer, and behind every farmer, there's got to be NC, the official state identity program for North Carolina agricultural products. Look for the Got to Be NC logo wherever you shop or eat, and you'll know you're getting a quality product grown, raised, caught, or made in North Carolina.
This is your Drive at 5 and ENC with Tom Lamprecht. Welcome back to News and Views on Talk 96.3 and 103.7.
All right, welcome to that fun game show, Liberals Are Liars. That's the theme of today's program. And yes, I've got yet another example. Hope you're not getting sick of it. New York Times columnist. This guy is a nut job, too, Paul Krugman. Started out as an economist, and now he's just a flat-out liberal nut. He argues that mass rioting, looting from last summer was just something Republicans, quote, believe happened. Throughout last summer, Americans witnessed widespread rioting and looting. Many BLM demonstrations caused across America. Now, New York Times columnist Paul Krugman is arguing that all that destruction is just something Republicans, quote, believe. Krugman made the comment in a series of tweets criticizing Republicans for being most concerned about illegal immigration and the deficit, according to a Pew study. Yeah, you think? Quote, you might think that it would be hard to obsess over the deficit when it actually was Trump who blew the deficit up to zero complaints from his party, Krugman tweeted. Yeah, and Trump also increased our economy beyond anyone's belief. And quite frankly, had he had the ability to stay and wasn't robbed of the presidency, I think that deficit would have started to come down because the economy was going so fast in the correct direction. But that would be something that Republican voters know about or would be willing to hear it. In reality, given that the GOP supporters believe that rampant mobs burned and looted major cities, somehow without the people actually living in those cities noticing, getting them to see facts about something as abstract as the deficit is a hopeless cause, Krugman continued. He also said in a separate thread that BLM may have been the best behaved protest movement in history, claiming that there are only a small number of bad actors. In reality, the violent demonstrations caused up to $2 billion in property damage and resulted in 18 deaths, according to Fox News. As you can imagine, Krugman has had a lot of pushback. But again, it's not fitting their narrative. So they're just going to lie about it. They're going to tell you that black is white and white is black. The night is day and day is night. The good is bad and bad is evil. And evil is good. It is crazy. It is crazy how the facts are before them as clear as it can possibly be. And Krugman comes out and says, oh, there was no rioting. There was no issues. Oh, and BLM, that's the most peaceful protest we've ever seen. Wow. 2,000 cops injured, $2 billion in damages, 1,500 businesses destroyed, but there was no damage. There was no, what's the big deal? Wow. I guess we got to take another break, don't we? That's what happens when your host is long-winded and doesn't get his breaks in on time. But stay with us. More news and views. We'll be right back.
show that really makes you think.
He is a genius.
He's all powerful.
He brought a kind of heat.
He could be the best. Just don't hurt yourself, okay? More news and views on Talk 96.3 and 103.7.
All right, welcome back in. Yesterday, Greta Thunberg, who's now 18, still looks like she's about 9 or 10. That's not a slam. I mean, you look at her, it's hard to believe she's 18. She looks very young. But she is the gal from, was she from Denmark? Who is over here for Earth Day and had some dire predictions for the planet. One representative from California, Katie Porter, said, I have a 9-year-old daughter. I have 3 kids. And my 9-year-old daughter says, Mom, what are you going to do about climate change? The Earth is on fire and we're all going to die soon. And I feel so upset. I don't know what to do. Thank you for the question, Thunberg replied. That's a big question. She went on her usual tirade, pronouncing that subsidies for fossil fuels were clear proof we have not understood the climate emergency at all. She went on to say, to be honest, I don't believe for a second that you will actually do this. The climate crisis doesn't exist in the public debate today. You will still get away with continuing to contribute to the destruction and presence of our future living conditions. How long do you honestly believe that people in power like you will get away with it? How long do you think you can continue to ignore the climate crisis? Well, Greta, why don't you go back to wherever and worry about your country? But isn't it interesting? I mean, this is almost a form of pantheism. The worshiping of the creation instead of the creator. And why is it? You know, my 9-year-old daughter, she's so brilliant. She's telling me that we're all going to die because the earth is on fire. And Greta, the 18-year-old, comes in and says, yes, let me tell you. Let me, you ignorant adults. As 18 years old, I have got so much more wisdom than you all have. Let me tell you. Greta, did you fly over here? I know, it's a big deal because she came over originally in a sailboat. Greta is flying around the world constantly. What's your carbon footprint, Greta? I mean, if the world is literally on fire and we're all going to die, then, Greta, why don't you just stay home and prepare for eternity? Daily Wire is reporting a couple conducting a gender reveal event. This is unbelievable. They for the event, they took 80 pounds of explosives, put a bunch of blue chalk in with them, and decided, this was up in New Hampshire, 80 pounds of explosives.
Oh, my.
And blew the explosives up with the blue chalk to celebrate the fact that they're going to have a boy. 80 pounds of explosives. It shook the windows 20 miles away. The name of the couple has not been released. Residents complained that the foundations to their homes were damaged, and it was felt 20 miles away. 80 pounds of tannerite were covered with blue chalk to create colored smoke to show the expected baby is a boy. Homeowners up to 20 miles away, one homeowner by the name of Heidi Jordan told the New Hampshire union leader, I thought for a second that maybe a large dump truck had gone off the road and struck a tree. I also considered that it may have been another minor earthquake. Some local residents, some local residents also said their tap water turned brown following the explosion. Wow. Congratulations on having a little boy. And now that, well, a good portion of New Hampshire knows about it. I mean, look, I was excited when I was going to have my first grandson. Finally had a little boy after having 3 daughters of my own. That was exciting. We just had a cake. We had a cake with blue icing inside, and that was fine. But hey, you know what? My hunch is I hope you have good insurance, because it sounds like you're going to be paying for a few cracked foundations to be repaired. Hey, listen, have a great weekend. Get out there and avoid the rain Saturday night and enjoy Saturday, enjoy Sunday, and we'll be back with you on Monday for another edition of News and Views. We'll see you then. Bye-bye, everybody.